The following is a presentation of Surprise Church. El siguiente programa es la presentación de la iglesia Surprise.
We're back. Anyway, I was really looking forward to coming back and being here last Sunday, but of course, they decided to cancel a flight Saturday from the city, so we had to wait another day. Thankfully, Ernie was willing to preach anyway and planning to preach anyway, because I would have been jet-lagged and I would have been made no sense up here. So but I'm excited today to kind of cap off the series and just to kind of wrap it up and put a bow on it and to say Jesus came for a reason. Sometimes you go to church and you say to yourself, check the box. We did it. We went to church today. Now we're good for at least 2 or 3 weeks before we feel like we should go again. Or, you know, I said the dinner time prayer, or I put a 5 in the offering plate, or I help my neighbor with something, and I kind of feel like, okay, there's this thing in me that wants to say I did good in the eyes of God, and I check the box, and there's something missing beneath all that, in that when my kids once in a while at bedtime say, tell me a Bible story, of course that's like heroin for a pastor to hear their kids say that. You know, tell me a Bible story? Okay. But I always, at the end, I get down and I want them to know that these aren't just stories that are just like Cinderella and the stories I make up about boogers and things that boys laugh at. These stories are true. And so this story is also started continuing in your life, I'll tell them. And the hero of that story, Jesus, is in this room, which sometimes really freaks a kid out, because now they want their closet doors open and they want you to look under their bed for them to see who else is in the room. But these stories are true for a very important reason. Jesus came for a reason. And when you turn on the TV news, when you open the newspaper, or when you just take an honest inventory of your life and relationships, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's not a person here who hasn't experienced significant pain. Even the young among us have experienced significant pain in our relationships. And many times we don't even know that pain exists because we don't have anything to compare it to. We don't know that we are experiencing an emptiness, a void, a shock, a struggle. And it's only when that has been filled by a God-loving relationship, or by a relationship with a loving God, do we realize, oh my goodness, look at that. But in the middle of it, you can't even see straight. There's a fog that you can't see through. Jesus came for a reason. The reason has roots at the very beginning of the Bible story. To summarize the first 3 chapters in the Bible, Genesis chapters 1 and 2, God made it, everything's good, thumbs up. Genesis chapter 3, thumbs down. That's all you need to know. I'll tell you a little bit more. Genesis chapter 3 is where the roots of intimacy starts to crumble. The foundation starts to crumble. Intimacy is replaced by isolation. Here's why. Humans decide that they know better than God, are going to do it their own way, that God's will for us is actually limiting us from accomplishing our full potential rather than helping us and protecting us and defining us. And so they decide to do it their own way. They turn away from God. And as humans do that, as we read the story, it's so true for us. We feel shame for the first time. We think that Adam and Eve thought that they were going to experience what it means to really live. And boy, do they. They turn away from God, disobey the one command he gave them, and then what they do next is they look at their bodies and they're ashamed of them. Do you know one person who is not ashamed of their body? At least some part of their body. Do you know one person? Or something inside their lives? So as we turn away from God, we feel this sense of shame. And when you feel shame, you don't want people to see your shame, do you? You want to what? Hide. So what happens next is Adam hides from God, the all-knowing, all-powerful creator. You think you're going to hide your naked body behind a bush from the all-powerful creator? I mean, it just shows how twisted his mind immediately became when he turned from God. We don't see reality. He hides. And God knows where he is, but he asks the question that has haunted us, I think haunted men in particular throughout history. Adam, where are you? Where are the men who are not afraid to do what's right and to be vulnerable, to bring their shame to light, to come to God? Where are the women who are not ashamed to seek healing for something they want to hide instead? And instead of coming clean, instead of coming for help, instead of coming for healing, what we do as human beings is we blame each other. You see how this works in your own relationships, don't you? This impulse to protect ourselves is so powerful that we have to find a cause for our relationship problems somewhere else. It's too painful to look here, isn't it? Because if the problem is me, oh my word, what does that mean? It means that I am lost in my shame. And if you don't have an antidote to shame on your Rolodex that you can call whenever you need to, you're going to hide over and over through all kinds of complex schemes that seem to look like you have it all together on the outside. And you've got argument after argument to why what you're doing makes sense and why everybody else is the problem. But at the end of the day, it's a house of cards covering your insecurity and your shame. See, broken people protect themselves through isolation, distraction, and self-serving relationships. Do you have any friends that you pray with? Do you have any friends that you cry with? Does anybody know the things that really hurt in your story? Who do you stand over here? Who do you confide in? Who do you talk about your dreams for what you feel like you're on earth to accomplish with? Who do you lean on? And who leans on you? Because relationships definitionally are two-directional, so that you allow yourself to go there with someone else who knows that it's okay to be vulnerable to you with the things that they're hoping for, dreaming about, hurting because of, needing, wanting, struggling with, praying for, crying about, frustrated with. Do you have relationships like that? Or do they need to stay up here? Do you need to talk about the weather, school, work, politics, religion? And we can talk about religion, because Genesis 3, what were they talking about? They were talking about God. They were not talking to God when they made their decision. Relationships become self-serving when we're ashamed, because mutual relationships are way too dangerous. We do not want someone seeing the real me, and we do not want to see the real them, because that's going to be, I already have enough problems with the real me, so why would I want to see the real them? And I'm going to isolate from that. I'm going to do things that might be good things. I'm just going to do them at a level that it's going to prevent me. I'm going to pretend and not be able to do that because of all the other important things I'm doing, but at some point they just become distractions. Sometimes my distractions are bad distractions, chemicals, overindulgence of media, drugs, addictions, whatever. But oftentimes our distractions are just good things at the expense of great things, of necessary things. See, broken people, as we said, live in shame, blame, and isolate rather than deal with it, and then hide from God, and I would even add hide from others. Healthy people own their mistakes. Healthy people can say, you know what, I don't know what to do right now. I'm struggling. I hurt you. I feel like I disappointed you. I feel like you disappointed me. I can own that, though. I can be honest about it, and it's okay. And it's even okay if you reject me. I can own my pain. I can own what happened to me in the past, and that doesn't have to define my future. I can actually get my mind around while I'm struggling to process reality in a certain way, and I can deal with it rather than run from it. I can work through it with help rather than hide from help and pretend the problem is always someone else. And because I'm willing to own it, I can repair my relationships. I can pursue real relationships. I can pursue intimacy with God and others. And unless you're willing to just plain own, not make it part of your identity, like I am my failings, I am my pain, but to say I own it in the sense of I know that nobody else can deal with this for me, and nobody else is responsible for what I'm struggling with. Even if someone did something to me, I am responsible for how I handle it. Do you know how many men get to be 50, 60, 70 and never do that? it's been someone's fault their whole lives, or they don't even know the issue, they just know isolation is the only way through life. Letting people in equals bad, and I don't even know why. You know how many women struggle in relationships from grade school on up because they never learned that it was safe to be close. They learned in the school of hard knocks that close equals pain. No one ever showed them how to be close and safe. You want to talk about why Jesus came? He came to help broken people become healthy. And I know that some of you are sitting here today saying, this is impossible, it's too late for me. Come on, be honest. Some of us are here today saying, it's too late for my spouse or my father or my mother. It's too late. And I'm calling BS. Because the God we're talking about raises dead people. Parts oceans. And if this God can't deal with that, then all of us are just lost. We get together and do what we're doing every week because we believe in a God who, it's never too late. It does not have to be too late for you. It does not have to be too late for your spouse. But I want you to listen for you today, not using that human deflecting machine to think this is for somebody next to you, because I guarantee you there's something for you in this too, even if you struggle to a lesser extent in your relationship than someone that especially struggles with this. Listen for yourself. Trust God to work on the person next to you or the person that wouldn't come today because they're at home. Trust him to work on them. You work on you. That's what healthy people do. John chapter 13, Jesus is sitting with his disciples, and he has made a bombshell announcement. What has he announced? He's announced that one of his most intimate friends will betray him. And betraying Jesus means you're going to do something that sells him off, profits you, gets him killed. So Jesus had just announced this. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the aftermath of that announcement, and we're just going to push the not pause, but super slow button, and we're going to see what he does and what the setting looks like in the room. It's going to be pretty surprising. John 13, he just makes the announcement, one of you is going to betray me. His disciples stared at one another at a loss to know which one of them he meant. One of them, look at this now, the disciple whom Jesus loved, hold on to that, interesting description, was reclining next to him. Literally, that reads in the original language, upon Jesus' chest. Interesting. Now, I got to take you a step deeper here. They don't have chairs. There's no Amish store down the street in Jesus' day where they made these beautiful, oak chairs. This is pillows on the ground, and so you are reclining against pillows, kind of on one hand, there's an elbow on the ground, back on pillows, and you're eating one hand on your plate. On this table, it's probably a foot off the ground. So if someone is next to you, they're not sitting next to you like this, with their, like in a movie theater or like in church, with your head on their shoulder. They are actually laying against you. Now, in our hyper-sensualized, sexualized culture, this image is even hard to put on a screen because immediately our minds go to the sensual. There's not a hint of sensuality to this passage. It's intimacy between two men. Now, Brady, if I asked you to come up here, and I'm not so sure I will, given that look on your face. I don't know. He's looking a little squirrely this morning. If I'm down and I am, you might have to adjust the cameras to even see this. If I'm down like Jesus, I'm in a reclining position against pillows. You can kind of see me in the back, look through his shoulder. If I ask Brady to come up here and do what this beloved disciple is doing, you're in a sense having to lay against me, which again, for two men to do, it's bizarre, it's uncomfortable. Maybe for me at least it would be. Again, I'm not liking the look on your face. It's not comfortable. One of you, as he says, with a disciple's head right here, laying against his body, one of you is going to betray me. Simon Peter, not that disciple, motioned to this disciple, so he goes, psst. The disciple leans up and listens to Peter. Ask him which one he means. Leaning back against Jesus, so here he is again, whispering into Jesus' ear, Jesus, who is it? I want to ask this passage 4 questions. I want us to do a 60-minute style interview very quickly with this passage, 4 quick questions. Number 1, why does it mention the cuddle? Why? Like what? John's writing the Gospel of John. He's like, oh yeah, I remember there's a cuddle going on. Why does he mention it during this bombshell prayer announcement? Or betrayal announcement, I should rather say, not prayer announcement, of one of his own betraying him, and at that very moment Jesus is cuddling? Like, why those 2 things juxtaposed? Number 3, why is this in a group setting, which it's awkward enough if it's just me and Brady, but if it's me and Brady in a church full of people, my word, that's just even more awkward. And then 4th, why doesn't it name this disciple? Why no name? We're going to find our answer in just a little sliver of text in the first chapter of John. We're going to go rewind 13 chapters to the introduction. So think Star Wars, when the orange text is coming up the screen, Think Lord of the Rings trilogy, where that elf lady is given the intro, and telling all about this world that you're about to enter. John has its own prologue where he talks about the world that Jesus is coming into and creating and redeeming. Listen to how that prologue ends. It says, no one has ever seen God, but the one and only Son, who himself is in the closest relationship with the Father. Literally, that phrase in the original language is exactly the same as it was in John 13 when the beloved disciple is laying against Jesus' chest, upon his bosom. Exact same reference in the original language. The translators chose to translate it this way just to try to help us understand it in English, but it says, no one has ever seen God, but the only Son of God, who is upon the Father's chest in close proximity to God, has come to make him known. That gives us all we need to understand John 13. Let's go back to it. Watch this. Why is it mentioned? It's because Jesus is offering the intimacy that he has with the Father to all. He came to make God known, John 1 says. And at his most vulnerable moment, with the people he has opened his life to. And by the way, in our most intimate relationships, that is where we suffer the most pain, isn't it? The people that you let in are going to disappoint you, and you are going to disappoint them, and therefore it creates pain to have intimacy. And Jesus says it's worth the risk, because without that risk, there's no intimacy. Here, Jesus says, I'm willing to share it, and men need to see that it's 2 men, and it's okay. Real men, and I dare you to find me a more manly man than Jesus Christ. He's the ultimate picture of what a man should be, and he's got no problem getting close. That's convicting for us men who are taught to bottle up our affection, who are taught manly means be straight-laced, firm, distant, dispassionate, or angry maybe, but sensitive, connective, close. Why during the betrayal? I think the answer to that is because it's unconditional. If Jesus is holding an unnamed disciple right here, symbolizing all of us, and he says, one of you is going to betray me? It's like, obviously, I am not conditioning my love for you upon your love for me, your good behavior. You came today, some of us came thinking that it's too late, that I'm not good enough, that something I've done is going to prevent me from God doing what he can do. And Jesus says, one of you is going to betray me. And he's holding his disciple right here. Why in a group? I think the quick answer there is we are adopted into a family. The sin of isolation makes us think that it's maybe me and God, but certainly not me, God, and everybody else in the family. And the answer is God adopted you to have lots and lots of brothers and sisters. You got 1 billion brothers and sisters around this planet. Learn how to get along with your siblings. Learn how to bear with your siblings. That's what family does. A lot of people push church away because there's all kinds of just messed up people like, yep. And by the way, they're outside the church too. They just are maybe better at us than hiding it. I don't know. But You're adopted into a family. That's why he's holding him close in community. Lastly, I'm going to invite Dave Spickler up as I answer this last question. Why is the disciple unnamed? It's because he wants you to see yourself there. Think of it. If he names the disciple, this is Billy. You're like, okay, there's Billy. But if it says it's a disciple that Jesus loved, it almost invites us, the reader, to imagine being that close to God. My question to you as I turn to Dave is, what would it take for you to feel that close to God? What would it take for you to feel like you can see yourself in that beloved disciple's place? Because I guarantee you, some of you, and I don't know why, this must be the lightning bolt spot. Some of you, when you heard, imagine yourself where that disciple is, you tried and you pushed and you grunted and you almost were worried that something's going to come out. You're pushing so hard and you can't see yourself there. Try as I might, I cannot imagine God and me that close. I can't, for whatever reason. What would it take for you to see yourself there? Dave is one of our missional community leaders, and missional communities at Surprise are kind of how we help people understand how to be close with God in the family that God died to create for us. They're people that get together once a week, share a meal, break into even smaller same-gender groups of 3 or 4 to do the heavy lifting of accountability, personal growth, and discipleship. And then they also covenant together to make a difference in a specific way in the community with a certain people group, neighborhood, school, or institution, because that's what a missional community is. It's not just a community, it's not just a mission, it's a missional community. And so Dave, just going to share 2 questions I was going to ask Dave. Number one, what have missional communities been like for you to be a part of? What have you experienced, and how have you seen God working in missional communities here at Surprise?
Yeah, well, thanks, Matt. I'd shared I've been coming to Surprise almost since it started, and for the first 2 years or so, came to church, literally never talked to anyone, and just left again. Very much kept church confined to that 1 hour on Sunday, and you actually invited me to be a part of the single parent missional community, and I thought I'll check it out, and had an idea conceptually of what it would be like, but as we got into it, it's really this unique thing where you've got a group of people that are tied by either something they have in common in life or something they care about together, and that made a real unique foundation for us to pray together, laugh together, and then ultimately serve together, and in the process grow much closer, and it's been a very good thing in that sense.
And how have you seen God, in terms of that growth of closeness, how have you seen God specifically do that? Like, what have you seen happen in the missional community that you're a part of, that we're a part of, to see people growing closer to God and others?
I think that's a great question, and something that we're most excited about for myself, for our group. The biggest thing as we've grown in our missional community is it's just knocked down all these barriers and silos we put up to keep all these aspects of our life separate, where, okay, church is just right here, friends are here, work is here. We've started to move into the missional aspect of this, where we've targeted a people group and a mission that we're going to come alongside. And a couple weeks ago, a few of us were meeting at the office of one of us, meeting at the end of the workday at an office together, where we talked about the next steps in our mission. At the end of this, we actually prayed together, prayed for this mission, and it was really compelling to look back on that and say, here you've got 5 people that were strangers just a few months ago, sitting around a conference table that had probably never been prayed around before, and to see where that might go next, it's been really exciting for us. And
there's growth involved in kind of saying, like, God, what are you calling us to do together? And then sometimes that's intimidating, but that causes you to lean on each other and God in some ways you hadn't before. So it's hard to grow closer to God without that mission, but it's also hard to pursue that mission without growing close to God. And so we feel like these are the perfect seed beds for that discipleship that God is calling us. We're not just called to come and sit and stare at the back of someone's head on Sundays. We're called, as discipleship is an all of life. And when people experience that, it's like looking at a 3D movie through those little glasses. Jesus and the reality of God starts coming in a really cool new way. And thank you for being a part of it, Dave. Let's give Dave a hand here, please. Next Sunday, we're going to take this to the next level. Actually, on Wednesday, we're starting this series. So it's going to be Wednesday, Sunday is kind of the continuity. We're starting on Wednesday and Sunday of a series about the world without church. What would the world look like without church? And how does communities that are on mission, like our single parents missional community, change everything? in our homes, in our neighborhoods and schools. I'm going to have you right now grab your Connect card on your chair that we pulled out a few minutes ago when we were doing announcements. I want to make sure you have a prayer request on there. If you've got something anything at all we can pray for, or we've started to get prayer celebrations. People who say, hey, thank you for praying for me. Something awesome happened. We love it when you share with us answered prayers. Then you can share how you want to connect at Surprise. Just take a step. I want you to see this Connect card is like a baby step, an in-between step, and a giant step towards intimacy. I hope over this today or this month that God has said to you, I want you to experience more of me. I want you to stop hiding in every way and open yourself up to this intergenerational family that functions as a surprise party in the world, and I want you to stop running. Stop hiding. There is no shame in Jesus. Jesus never worries. He's never afraid. He's never hiding. He's never fearful. He's never anxious. And so when you grab his hand and buckle up for the ride, you don't have to be either. But you need friends and family around you when you do that. Consider one of our missional communities. If you're not sure, on the card in front of you, there's one at the bottom called One Size Fits All. We've had overwhelming interest. We might have to start, we're looking for leaders to start multiple groups right now for missional communities because we have so many of you who've said, I want that kind of life. I've been missing it and I want it. So we're going to take our offering, and during this next song, and if you're a first-time guest, your Connect card is your offering that I feel no obligation to give. If you're a regular, thanks for your giving. Set up an online plan if you haven't yet. It's a great, convenient way to give. And share that Connect card as a step towards intimacy. I'm going to conclude with this. One year when my son was about 2 years old, he would wake up oftentimes with night terrors. And he would wake up sometimes when there was nothing we could do to console him. One particular night, I was too tired to even know that it was happening. I was laying in bed, half awake, half asleep, hearing the shrieks and the moans and the groans. And my wife had gotten up and she was going to his room and she was trying dancing, singing, bobbing, rocking, shushing, feeding, whatever. Nothing worked. This boy was inconsolable. And then she said, I'm going to try the only other thing I can think of. She carries this little boy into our bedroom and she just, out of desperation, plops him on my chest. And the moment his head hit my chest, he was out. It's one of the best moments of my life. And it was like God was saying to me, there are times where we just need our dad. And I don't know what you experienced with your dad. This one's perfect. And he wants you close. Stand and sing with us as we collect offering.